When I first released the video about the Hateful Eight, I made the point that every character in the movie is not only disgusting, but also completely consumed by lies. But in the comments, a few people asked, what about John Ruth?
Well, I'll be double dog damn. You're the Hangman Bob Ruth.
It's John.
He seems to be the one honest guy, a straight shooter who says what he thinks, doesn't hide his intentions, and tells everyone exactly what's on his mind.
$10,000. That money's mine, boys. Don't want to share it.
This made me want to create a separate video where I explain why, actually, John Ruth is also lying. But his lie is way more complicated and deep than it seems at first.
Music time's over.
A few commenters also pointed out that the director messed up the logic behind the character's actions. Why didn't the bad guys just take out John Ruth as soon as he arrived and get it over with? Why did they drag it out into this whole play? There's actually a pretty logical answer to that, and we're definitely going to break it down in this video. We'll also dive into the phenomenon of bounty hunters and how John Ruth's character ties into Leon Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance. Let's take a closer look at who he really is. At first glance, it seems like the gang made a pretty dumb move, not taking out John Ruth the second he stepped into the haberdashery.
Kick it up on! Shut that door to the gun.
Why go through all this trouble with deception? Why not just get rid of him on the spot and free Daisy Domergue? After all, they're armed and outnumber him, but it's not that simple. John Ruth is not the kind of guy you can easily catch off guard. His nickname, the Hangman, says it all. He's the one who delivers criminals alive to be hanged. That shows he's used to working in constant danger. Notice how he almost always has his rifle in hand, using it only a few times in the movie. And of course, he's got revolvers on his belt.
Oh, I still got mine. I'll protect you.
His reputation precedes him, and the criminals know exactly who they're dealing with.
Now, killing that fella before he kills my sister ain't gonna be easy, but you better believe that's exactly what we're gonna do. So the name of the game here is patience.
Any move against him could lead to a shootout, so attacking him directly seemed way too risky. Plus, Ruth had a hostage, Daisy, whose life was too valuable to the gang for them to risk shooting her right away if things went south.
It doesn't matter if we have 4 men or 40. We are still gonna be facing John Ruth, chained to my sister with a pistol pointed at her belly.
Daisy Domergue is a seriously dangerous criminal with a $10,000 bounty on her head. It's pretty clear you don't put a price like that on harmless people, and John Ruth, known as the Hangman, knew this well. He understood that when transporting such a dangerous criminal, anything could happen. That's why from the start he's super cautious, even to the point of being paranoid.
One of them fellas is not what he says he is. What is he? In cahoots with this one, that's what he is.
He first aims his weapon at the Major.
Hold it, black fella. Before you approach, take them 2 guns of yours and you lay them on that rock over yonder.
Then at the Sheriff.
You keep holding that lantern in that one hand. Keep that other hand where I can see it.
And on top of that, Ruth makes the Major travel in handcuffs.
Put them on.
Oh, I ain't wearing no handcuffs.
You put those on and you can stop worrying about this whole thing right now.
But who said the gang didn't try to kill Ruth as soon as he arrived? They tried, and not just once. First, there was the attempt by Mexican Bob, aka Marco, who tried to lure John into the stable under the pretense of helping with the horses.
I just put those other horses away! You need it done fast! You need to help!
That attempt failed.
I got 2 of my best men on it!
After that, Joe Gage, aka Grouch Douglas, made his move. You can see these scenes in the director's cut of the film. And it's clear that Joe Gage intended to shoot Ruth right then and there. They even signaled Daisy that they were ready to open fire. But then, something important happened. Daisy made it clear that attacking Ruth wasn't a good idea, since there were 2 more armed guys with him. First, she pointed to one.
New sheriff of Red Rock's traveling with us.
Then, using a joke, hinted at the second one, and Joe Gage backed off.
You can share bananas with your nigger friend in the stable.
So,
A little later, when the driver and Oswaldo Menix returned, they started asking about the second guy who still hadn't come back from the stable.
What does she mean when she said a bounty hunter's nigger friend in the stable?
He's got a bounty hunter friend in the stable.
But all that just got her.
It's also possible that Oswaldo Mowbray, aka Pete Hickox, had his own plan. When John Ruth walks into the room, the first thing he does is go straight to the coffee pot and pour himself a cup. After taking a sip, he immediately spits it out and pours it on the floor.
Right, that's awful.
You could guess the coffee was poisoned, but someone clearly overdid it with the dose, which is why it tasted so awful. At least it definitely wasn't Minnie's coffee, because earlier we saw the gang drinking it.
Best coffee on the mountain.
Oh, I don't know about all that. Stagecoach drivers like it, passengers not so much.
And there were no signs it was that bad.
Well, what do you think?
You might have a way out of this yet.
John Ruth had also been to Minnie's before,
Where's Minnie and Sweet Dave?
so this coffee definitely wasn't hers. Could it be that the coffee wasn't poisoned but just horribly brewed? It's possible. But given that John Ruth, who's definitely not a barista, brewed it himself and it tasted perfectly fine,
Coffee beans. What we talked about in the wagon.
something must have been in that drink. Probably poison.
Right, that's awful. Christ almighty, what'd that Mexican fella do? Soak his old socks in a pot?
Why do I think Mowbray brewed the coffee? Because even though he was here for the first time, he definitely knew where the beans and water were.
Where's the well water?
Over there.
Coffee beans.
Over there.
When you hear the term bounty hunter, you probably think of classic westerns, where every criminal had a poster that said wanted, dead, or alive. But bounty hunters aren't just movie characters, they're a real part of the American legal system that still exists today. Originally, this practice came from England in the Middle Ages, when the government would hire regular citizens to catch runaway criminals in exchange for a reward. But it really took off in the US after 1873. That year, something important happened that laid the foundation for legalizing bounty hunting. The Supreme Court, in the case of Taylor versus Tenter, ruled that bounty hunters are now an official part of the U.S. law enforcement system. These bounty hunters worked for bail bondsmen, individuals or companies that paid bail for criminals, allowing them to be temporarily released until trial. If the accused person skipped town, it was totally legal to hire someone to track them down, and that's where the bounty hunter came in. Their job was to find the fugitive. Modern bounty hunters are definitely different from the ones we usually see in movies. Even though they have pretty broad powers, their actions are still limited by the law. For example, bounty hunters can pursue fugitives across state lines, something regular cops can't always do, unlike federal agents. They can break down doors without a warrant and use force, but only if the person has violated the terms of their bail. While they have more freedom than the police, this job comes with huge risks. A lot of criminals don't go down without a fight, and any mistake could cost a bounty hunter their career, or even their life. Mistakes do happen. For example, in Virginia, one bounty hunter mistakenly broke into the wrong house and shot an innocent person. That case sparked a whole new debate about how safe this profession really is. Bounty hunters still operate in the US, but it's not legal everywhere. In states like Illinois, Kentucky, Oregon, and Wisconsin, bounty hunting is banned. In California and Texas, they can only work if they have a license. Although the methods have changed a lot, the main idea is still the same. If someone doesn't show up to court, they have to be brought back. The dead or alive rule is a thing of the past, and now John Ruth is working within the framework of modern law.
When the handbill says dead or alive, the rest of us shoot you in the back up on top of perch something. When the hangman catches you, you hang.
By the way, why is it so important for John Ruth to bring the criminal in alive? John Ruth's nickname is the Hangman, and he earned it because he always brought criminals in alive, insisting they be hanged legally rather than killed on the spot. But the key question is, why did he do that?
Why is her hanging proper so important to you?
In the movie, he's asked this several times, and every time he gives a different answer.
Let's just say I don't like cheating the hangman. He gotta make a living too. No one said the job's supposed to be easy.
No one said it's supposed to be that hard, neither.
Which suggests the real reason is probably much deeper. The first thought that comes to mind is sadistic tendencies. John Ruth was always present at the executions, and even mentioned more than once how much he enjoyed the process.
You gonna wait around and watch it?
Oh, you know I am. I want to hear her neck snap in my own 2 ears.
But this theory falls apart when you look at his behavior. If sadism were his main motivation, he could satisfy those urges during transportation. He had plenty of chances to use his power over the criminals he was hauling, and if violence was his goal, It would make sense for him to take them out along the way. But he doesn't, so the reason must be something else. The next theory is that he doesn't trust the justice system. Maybe John Ruth wanted to make sure the sentence was carried out, so he always showed up for the executions. He might have seen himself as a guarantor of justice, a sort of personal executioner in the eyes of the criminals. But this theory also has its doubts. If John Ruth didn't trust the justice system, it would mean he also doubted the legality of the sentences he was carrying out. But we don't see any signs that he questions the legitimacy of the cases he handles. He does his job confidently and doesn't question the system. So, it's not about trust. Maybe John Ruth is just obsessed with strict rules, laws, and order. He believes in the fairness of the law and that every criminal should go through court and be executed according to it. For him, it's all about the ritual of delivering justice. But this theory doesn't hold up because bringing in a criminal dead isn't a violation of the rules. The law clearly says, alive or dead. Bringing them in dead is still following the law. A more likely reason is pride and vanity. John Ruth was known as the bounty hunter who always brought criminals in alive, and that became his trademark, setting him apart from other hunters. In a world where any bounty hunter could just shoot the criminal and deliver their corpse for a reward, Ruth stands out with his approach, cementing his reputation as the Hangman, the one who finishes the job.
When the hangman catches you, you hang.
Being present on the square where everyone knows he's the one who brought the criminal to be hanged, risking his life, likely boosts his ego. But I think that, while there's some truth to that, the real reason runs much deeper. To understand it, we need to look at the work of psychologist Leon Festinger. We often assume that our thoughts and actions are always in sync. If we believe in something, we act according to those beliefs. But the reality is way more complicated. Imagine you're an environmental activist fighting for the protection of nature and against air travel, since planes are one of the biggest sources of greenhouse gas emissions. Instead of flying to an international conference, you decide to cross the ocean on a solar-powered yacht, an eco-friendly way to travel, a symbol of your principles. But then this happens. To get the yacht back, you have to send 2 crew members by plane. You'd think your actions would symbolize the fight against pollution, but in reality, the result ends up being the opposite. By the way, write in the comments if you figured out who I'm talking about. What do you think is going through your head at this moment? Of course, you start feeling internal tension, a conflict between your beliefs and your actions. This conflict is called cognitive dissonance. The theory of cognitive dissonance, developed by Leon Festinger in 1957, explains situations when our thoughts and actions contradict each other. This creates strong internal tension, and we try to get rid of that discomfort in any way we can. In the example I gave, the activist might justify themselves. Yeah, I had to send the crew by plane, but it still drew attention to the emissions issue and helped raise an important topic. By doing that, they'd reduce the dissonance. So how does this relate to John Ruth? At first glance, he seems like a rough, brutal bounty hunter.
I see you ain't got mixed emotions about bringing a woman to a rope.
By woman, you mean her?
But if you look more closely, you'll see that, in reality, he's much more vulnerable and sensitive than he lets on. One example of this is his reaction to Daisy playing the guitar.
That's the one you like to sing in the stagecoach, huh? She's kind of pretty.
In that moment, his tough exterior starts to crack, and he softens. Another key moment is his attitude toward the letter from Abraham Lincoln.
Old Mary Todd. That gets me.
He's the only one who truly believes in the authenticity of the letter and reads it with such reverence. This shows that, despite his brutality, Ruth remains an idealist who wants to see something good and right in the world. Watch how he reacts when he finds out the letter is a fake.
Well, I guess it's true what they say about you people. Can't trust a f***ing word comes out of your mouth. Call it what you want. I call it a dirty f***ing trick.
I think that's exactly why his name is Ruth. Mercy, compassion. If you're still doubting, think back to what John Ruth did right after he was poisoned. That's right, he warned Mannix, and pretty much saved his life.
The coffee!
This shows once again that deep down, he really is merciful. But despite that, there's also brutality and a clear tendency toward violence in him. As we know, that tendency exists to some extent in all of us as a side effect of evolution. And this is where John faces cognitive dissonance, an inner conflict between his brutal nature and his desire for mercy. According to Festinger's theory, when our beliefs and actions contradict each other, we experience cognitive dissonance and try to get rid of that tension. For John Ruth, this inner conflict shows up in the fact that he has to create his own code to help him deal with his contradictions. He doesn't want to personally send people to their death because it's too close to murder, which goes against his inner principles. So he compromises with his conscience by taking on the role of an instrument of justice. He brings criminals in alive and watches their execution, but he doesn't kill them with his own hands. This code allows him to be involved in the punishment, satisfying his instincts, but without getting his hands dirty and keeping himself clean, so to speak. He feels like he's part of the law, keeping his brutality within his beliefs, and at the same time avoiding the guilt of murder. As a result, John Ruth is constantly in conflict between brutality and mercy. And in trying to resolve this conflict, he creates his own bounty hunter code.
You really only need to hang mean bastards. But mean bastards, you need to hang.
When the hangman catches you, you hang.
This, in essence, is the same disguised lie that every character in The Hateful Eight carries with them. If you want me to analyze another character from The Hateful Eight, let me know by liking this video. From the like-to-view ratio, I'll know that you're interested in such an analysis. And if you want me to focus on a specific character, just drop their name in the comments.